Alright guys, welcome to the Unit 3 Cycle 1 Level 2 Sigma Learn. Let's get into it. So today we are going to learn how to write linear equations given a scenario. So in the last two videos, I believe triangle and infinity, you should have learned these two things. But as a quick review, we're going to learn. Okay? We're going to remind ourselves how to write linear equations from both a table and a graph. So, in both situations, we want our equation to be in the form y equals mx plus b. That's our ultimate goal. Okay? We first need to find a point, like an xy coordinate, and we also need to find a slope. Right? Once we have those two things, we should be good to go. So let's check out number one. We need to find our point and we need to find the slope. So let's find a point first. Okay. If we look at the table, we can just pick out right here at the top a point. Negative 14, 3. So, negative 14 is my x value. Right? 3 would be my y value. Okay, that's a point. Negative 14, 3. This is my x. This is my y. Right? So mission accomplished. We found our point. Now we need to find the slope from the table. So we've already learned how to do this. Our slope is the change in y over the change in x. So our change in y over our change in x. Okay, change in y, 3 to 6, those numbers are getting bigger. So you're adding 3 on both sides. You're adding 3 here. Okay, you're going up 3. Change in x, this is getting bigger as well. You're going up 2. Okay, so your slope is 3 over 2. So I have a point and I have a slope. That's what I need, point and slope. Now I'm going to put it in this equation, y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b. I'm going to just plug all this in. We have an x, we have a y, and we have an m. So we're just going to plug it in. So my y is 3, so I would write 3 equals, my slope is 3 halves, or 3 over 2. My x is negative 14 plus b. We don't know our b yet. Okay? Now we're going to solve this for b. So solve for b. We've plugged in our y, we've plugged in our slope, we've plugged in our x. We're going to solve for b. So the way we solve for b, on this side, we'll just have 3 equals 3 halves times negative 14, if you put that in your calculator, will give you negative 21 plus b, right? And then we need b by itself, so we're going to add 21 on both sides. We get 24 equals b. Okay? 24 equals b. Now, we simply plug it back in. So my equation is y equals, my slope is still 3 halves, x, and then my b is 24. So I plug this number back in, plug this number back in, and that's my equation. So to find the linear equation given a table, you find the point and the slope, you plug it into y equals mx plus b, and then you solve for b, plug in the slope, plug in the y-intercept. Okay, so this is one way. There was another way, and we learned it on the other video. But that's one way. I think this way is a little bit quicker. Okay, number 2, find the equation of the line from the graph. Here, it's a little bit simpler. Still, we are solving. We're trying to find y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. So let's first find our y-intercept, b, and fill in the blank. So we'll have y equals something x plus something. right? So my B, going to be right here. My B is my y-intercept. So if my B is my y-intercept, it is just where the line crosses the y-axis. So right here, -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. So I would start from the origin and go down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my y-intercept is -4. Now my slope, remember, is rise over run. So I can pick 2 points, like this point and this point, and I would rise up 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3. Okay? My rise over run would be 2 over 3. Remember, this is up 2, so it's a positive number. To the right 3 is a positive number as well. So my slope would be 2 over 3. Now I don't really need to write it that way. My final answer could simply be y equals 2/3 x minus 4. Because it's plus and a negative, the negative takes over. Y equals 2/3 x minus 4. Okay? That is how you find slope from a graph. Find the equation from the graph. Okay, so moving on. This is what we're introducing. This is the new concept. If we are given a scenario, so like a word problem, we will represent our equation using 2 different forms. So you should have already been introduced to these forms. We have standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. So we might be asked to write our equation using that form. When we have 2 different variables. So we use this equation specifically when we have 2 different variables. And that will make sense once we start looking at more examples. When we have 2 different variables, okay, we will not always have a coefficient. Which a coefficient, remember, is the number before your variable. This is the coefficient. So sometimes it will just be x plus y equals c. We won't have an a, we won't have a b. That will also make sense once we start getting into it. Slope-intercept form is the other way we can represent a word problem. Y equals mx plus b. This situation is more when we are using words like each, per, rate, every. Things that imply that you're doing something over and over. Those words imply slope. Okay, so that would be what you would plug in for m. This is your m right here. Start, begin, fee, words like that. Words that mean, what are you starting with? What do you have at the very beginning of this scenario? That is implying y-intercept. Remember, that is your b. So when you're given a problem, you're going to first ask, okay, do I have words like each or per or rate or every here? Do I have words like start, begin? Because if I do, then I'm going to use slope-intercept. But if I don't, I'm going to use standard form. That's when I have 2 different variables. Okay, so we're going to ask ourselves, do you have one of these words? And then go from there. So let's give an example. Okay. So flip it over, level 2, sigma learn. Okay, Ryan has collected 80 baseball cards. Let's look at example 1. Ryan has collected 80 baseball cards. He plans to purchase 2 cards each week to add to his collection. Write the equation that best represents this situation. So right off the bat, we're going to ask ourselves, okay, do we see words like every and each and per and rate and stuff like that? If we do, then this is the form we're going to write it in. Okay? So let's look. He plans to purchase 2 cards each week. So right off the bat, we see words like each. So this would be using y equals mx plus b. So let's first figure out what our slope would be. Remember, those are words like each and per and rate and every. So each week he purchases 2 cars. So my slope here is 2. He purchases 2 cars each week. My y-intercept, on the other hand, is what he starts with. Well, he has already collected 80 baseball cards, and he's planning to purchase 2 more each week. So this is what he started with, 80 baseball cards. So the y-intercept is 80. So we know our slope, and we know our y-intercept. So now what we do is just plug these in. Right? Just plug these in right here. So I would get y equals 2x plus 8. Okay? That's how you do example 1. Now, to take a look at example 2. So example 2, we are going to look to see if we have words like each, or start, or every. Amber is going to the state fair with her friend. She has $115 to spend on food and rides. Write the equation that best represents this situation. Well, I don't see any words that would indicate I'm using slope-intercept form. So that means I'm using standard form. AX plus BY equals C. Okay. So let's figure out what our 2 different variables are. But we have 2 different variables. Okay, well, she has $115 to spend on food and rides. So our 2 different variables are food and rides. Let's label those simply F and R. Okay. Now for C, your C is always the total amount that you have. So she has $115 to start with, so my C is $115. Okay? And instead of writing AX plus BY, we're just going to simply write F plus R equals 115. Okay, so if you have 2 different variables, you're going to label them. And here we labeled them F plus R equals 115. And that's your final answer. F plus R equals 115. Okay. Now if we take a look at this one, a car can travel 32 miles for each gallon of gasoline. The car's fuel tank holds a total of 17 gallons. Well, right after that, we see the word each. So that means we need to be using y equals mx plus b. And if we're using slope-intercept form, we need to first find slope and then find y-intercept. The slope is indicated by words like each and every and once in a while and per week. So 32 miles for each gallon of gasoline, he can travel 32 miles for each gallon. So that's my slope. The car's fuel tank holds a total of 17 gallons. Right? But you got to check. This is gallons. So this is a brand new variable. Here we're dealing with miles for each gallon of gasoline. So gallons is not really our y-intercept. He starts out at 0 miles. So our y-intercept is actually 0. Okay, so now we know our slope and we know our y-intercept. Now let's plug those in. Alright, we're going to plug those in. We would have y equals 32x plus 0. Well, we don't really have to write all that, so we would really just be left with y equals 32x. Okay. Now let's see about the next one. Theater students are trying to raise $500 by selling tickets for their upcoming play. Write the equation that best represents this situation. On this one, there is a small typo. So I want you to write right after this sentence. This needs to say right here, parent tickets cost $10 each, and student tickets cost $5 each. Okay? Now this will help us better solve the problem. So let's first ask ourselves, okay, are we using words like each and every? So we are, but the most important thing is really here that we have 2 different variables. So we have parent tickets and student tickets. So because we have two different variables, we need to use ax plus by equals c. Okay, as a reminder, our two different variables are parent tickets, and we can just call that P, and student tickets. We can just call that S. Okay, so now that we know our two different variables, our total, remember, is C, and our total would be $500. So to plug it back into this equation, what we could have is equals 500, right? AX plus BY. Instead of using X and Y, I could call it P and S. So P plus S. But now, instead of just nothing in front of P and S, we actually see that parent tickets cost $10 each. So we need to put 10P plus 5S. So we would have 10P plus 5S equals $500. Again, the most important thing here is that we have two variables. We have parent tickets and student tickets. So it would be 10P plus 5S equals $500. Okay? Example 5. Janie has decided to sign up for the yoga classes her gym is having next month. The registration fee is $15 and each class costs $3. Okay? So again, how many variables are we dealing with here? Well, really we only have the yoga class, right? So if we only have the yoga class and we're using words like each class, right? This would be the slope-intercept form. So we would use y equals mx plus b. When we're using y equals mx plus b, our slope and our y-intercept are what we need to find. So the slope is every time we see each. So each class costs $3. So our slope is 3. For y-intercept, if we look back over here, one of the key words is a fee. For y-intercept, one of our key words is a fee. Well, we have a registration fee here of $15. Okay, so your y-intercept here would be 15. So to plug these in, right, you would get y equals 3x plus 15. Okay. Last one, example 6. Mary bought 20 items at the grocery store. She bought some produce, one variable, and some snack foods. So we have two separate variables here. Remember, standard form calls for two different variables. So when we have two different variables, we're going to use standard form. AX plus BY equals C. Okay, so what are our two variables? We have produce. Let's call it P. Snack foods. Let's call it X. C is our total, which is 20. So we know that C will be 20, right? And we don't know how much produce, we don't know how many snack foods we're going to buy. So we're just going to say P plus S. We don't know how many, so we're just going to keep it as is. P plus S equals 20. Okay? So, most important thing, if you have two different variables, use standard form. If you do not have two variables, you're going to use slope-intercept. Look for keywords like each, per, rate, every, but also look to see if you have two different variables. Okay? That will help you determine if you need to use standard form or slope-intercept form. Okay? Once you figure out which one you need to do, you plug in the values you need, and you should be off to the races. Okay, so flip it over. You should have a few demonstrate problems to work on.